And so I went up and I told the Speaker of the House, Mr. Speaker, I am a civil rights attorney, and I want to speak on the House floor about the largest civil rights decision handed down by my civil court in my civil country, and I'm going to talk about it. And he said, I don't think I can let you. And I said, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to cast any aspersions. I won't talk about the fact that Pennsylvania lacks all of these rights. I won't talk about why we lack all of these rights. I won't point any fingers. I don't have enough of them. And he said, all right. He said, all right. So I went and I took my seat, and eventually he called on me for what purpose does the good gentleman from Philadelphia rise? And I took a mic just like this, and I said, Mr. Speaker, today I rise, click. My mic went dead. And there's a video of me messing with my microphone. I actually thought I broke it. It's old. So they're messing with it. And right behind me, a colleague of mine from Philadelphia popped up. Mr. Speaker, today I rise, click. Her microphone went dead. And then a guy named Steve Saniciero from Bucks County stands up and he said, Mr. Speaker, today I rise, click. And I didn't know what was happening, but my colleagues did. Turns out there's one master kill switch on the House floor, and it belonged to the Speaker of the House. The gentleman that I had just asked permission to speak on the House floor. And here's what happened. I was speaking under something called unanimous consent. When legislators want to speak on a bill that's not germane to a piece of legislation that day, they speak on unanimous consent. When my colleagues get up and they talk about the volleyball team from their district that won something I don't care about, and when they talk about their 40th anniversary that means nothing to me, and when they get up there and they talk about the team from such and such that won the thing that I just don't care about, it's always under unanimous consent. And we all just agree to it. Of course, you can speak about that. But I got up to speak and somebody objected. And nobody had ever seen that before. The longest serving member of the House floor has been there for 42 years, and he had never seen anybody objected to under unanimous consent. It was sort of pro forma. When somebody speaks under unanimous consent, you just get to speak. But somebody objected, and all hell broke loose. It was kind of fun to watch. It was like Parliament, like shoes flying, wigs flying. And everyone was trying to figure out what happened. And ultimately what they figured out is that, sure, under unanimous consent, if one person pulls their consent, it is no longer unanimous, and you don't get to speak. And that person didn't have to identify themselves. And like, what kind of a democracy is that? Like the birthplace of democracy. What kind of democracy is that? And I was furious. And we were fighting back and forth, and then Darrell Metcalf, the chair of essentially the Pennsylvania Tea Party in the legislature, stood up and said, you need a name, it was my name. Put my name down. And he stormed out of the room. And he didn't know what he had done. Because in the next 10 minutes, a third of the Republican caucus rose up out of their seats and they wandered over to my side of the aisle. And they apologized. And they said, I am so, so sorry. This isn't about our ideology. This isn't about where we agree or disagree. This was about respect and decorum. And I made sure that I let them think that. I never once said this was left versus right. This was Democrat versus Republican. Because I needed to separate him from Republicans. I didn't need to make more enemies. We had enough. I needed to make some friends. And I got a lot of like, I may disagree with your lifestyle, but that was bullshit. Like, oh. Okay, like, thanks. Thank you so much. Put your gun down. Thank you. And I decided that night that I wasn't going to do anything else about it. I asked all my colleagues, rather than give more speeches, let's get sponsors on the non-discrimination law. All of these people just watch discrimination happen. Let's get some sponsors on the non-discrimination bill. And the next day, I planned on just taking to the House floor and working through the day. But Darrell Metcalf gave me a gift. He went on radio. He went on NPR, and he got asked why he objected to me speaking. And what he said was, and I'm going to paraphrase, he said, I objected because what he was about to say was a violation of God's law. Shh. God's law. First of all, when I'm violating God's laws, I do a much better job of it. Right. Pick your God. I'll break his laws. But I was furious. I was furious. I couldn't believe that I had been denied the opportunity to speak on my House floor because of somebody else's personal interpretation of their own faith. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. And as I was sitting there at my desk stewing, that fat Irish Catholic guy behind me leaned down and he says, Sims, there's another rule that lets you speak on the House floor. And he handed me his rule book, which was like bound in like duck fat. Like it was just the oldest rule book of all time. Right? Like him and his abacus and his rule book. And it turns out there's a rule that says if your good name has been impugned by another member, you're allowed to take to the House floor to respond. And I hadn't even finished reading the sentence before I was walking to a microphone. I was furious. Furious. I'm kind of a big doughy guy. When I get angry, I get all red. steamy and it's terrible looking. And I just walked up to a microphone. And I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. My colleagues thought I wasn't going to give a speech. And I stood at the microphone for almost 5 minutes. Nervous as hell. I watched the parliamentarian tell the speaker that I was there. They pointed me out. And no one was calling on me. And I didn't know why. And right before they did, somebody cleared their throat behind me. And I looked back. And it was a woman named Vanessa Lowry Brown, the chair of the Black Caucus in Philadelphia. And she had gotten up out of her seat and walked down behind me. And what followed her was the rest of the Democratic caucus. 92 members rose up out of their seats on the House floor and shuffled down into the aisle behind me. 92 members that don't support LGBT rights, by the way. But they decided to support me. And he called on me, he says, "For what purpose does the good gentleman rise?" And I said, "Mr. Speaker, I rise because my good name has been impugned by another member, and I want to talk about it." And I read his quote aloud about, God's law, and you could hear this audible gasp. And the speaker says, "Representative, what do you want to do about it?" I thought, oh shit. All right, I was like, all right. And if you watch the video, I look very contemplative, like, "Well, Mr. Speaker." I didn't have a clue. I hadn't thought that far ahead. And I said, "Well, I would like him reprimanded." That sounded so good to me, reprimanded. It took them about another 10 minutes to figure out what reprimanded would look like. And it was, I would have to file, I would have to recommend that he go before an ethics committee and all that. And I didn't do any of that. What I did was spend the next 6 weeks on Rachel Maddow and Chris Matthews, calling him stupid in every way that I possibly could. And watching Republicans sign on to the bill. It was delightful. I hit on the man now religiously, for whatever it's worth. His name is Daryl Metcalf. I call him Decaf. It's his drag name. Decaf? Hey! Like, it seems so. Whenever I talk to him, I touch him. No matter what he's wearing, I tell him it goes good with his eyes. And the truth is, it's working. Every one of us knows those people that if we corner them, they lash out and they get dangerous. He's not one of those people. The head of the Tea Party in Pennsylvania is one of those people that when you corner him and he lashes out, he punches a wall and he hurts his own fist. Or he steps in every ditch that we dig in front of him. And that's what's so different about us versus them. I get so annoyed when people talk about us being on the opposite side of the coin of them. If we were trying to take away the rights from racists, if we were trying to prohibit bigots from getting married, if we were trying to prohibit misogynists from having all the rights in the United States that we have, then we would be on the opposite side of the coin from them. But we're not, right? It's the thing that bothers me the most is when people say, well, there's you, and then there's you, and there's the rest of us in the middle. No. We're focusing on the rest of the people in the middle. He is the archetype of the 5 most hateful bills in Pennsylvania history. The ultrasound wand if you want an abortion, the English-only bill, the marriage equality, the anti-marriage equality bill. I mean, all of those things are his. When we tried to deputize all of the state police in Pennsylvania, Arizona style, that's all his. But he's losing. And he's losing every single day. He loses more and more and more. I'll tell you, the day that I introduced the Pennsylvania Marriage Equality Act, the day I introduced it, 21 hours after that bill was introduced, it had more co-sponsors than the anti-marriage equality bill had in 8 years. He's losing, and he knows that he's losing, right?